Hello my lovely bookish friends, and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be sharing with you some of my spring favourites. These are books that are perfect for this time of year and for this season. So let us get to the books. First up we have By Ash, Oak and Thorn. This is a middle grade book that follows three tiny ancient beings, once revered guardians of the wild world, who wake from winter hibernation in their beloved ash tree home, only for it to be destroyed. They set off on an adventure to find more of their kind, a journey that takes them first deep into the countryside and then into the heart of a city. Helped along the way by animals and birds, the trio search for a way to survive and thrive in a precious yet disappearing world. This book is set in spring and is full of wonderful nature imagery. This book beautifully captures issues of global warming and the human effects on the natural world and the damage that has been caused. And perhaps it touched me more as an adult because I could read between the lines of what the wilder issues that this book touches on that maybe a child would not. It was a delight to listen to because I listened to it as an audiobook, and I really want to read the next book to see what happens in the rest of this series. Next up we have Anne of Green Gables, which follows Anne Shirley, who is an 11-year-old orphan with an optimistic spirit and a wild creative imagination. She gets adopted by an ageing brother and sister, Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert, by accident after they request a boy, and thus begins a story of transformation for all three. Indeed, the whole rural community of Avionia comes under Anne's influence in some way or another. Anne is the most delightful character, and her joy for each season is contagious. She loves the spring, and this book allows us to see the season through her eyes. It is honestly such a comfort book. The characters are all wonderful and grow on you as you read. The story is very wholesome, and I think spring is the perfect season to give this book a go if you're reading it for the first time. Next up is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. This book follows the story of two sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, as their family falls on hard times and troubles that they both face during their love lives. Jane Austen's work is wonderful no matter what season it is, but for me, Sense and Sensibility always seems like a spring novel. Perhaps because they're outdoors quite often in it. This is one of the slower and softer of Jane Austen's novels, and it's one that I've found that I enjoy more now that I'm older than I did when I first read it as a teenager. I loved the TV show adaptation with Dan Stevens and Dominic Cooper in best, but I think most people are more familiar with the movie version with Kate Winslet, Emma Thompson and Hugh Grant. Both are wonderful and definitely worth rewatching during this season as well as reading the book. We couldn't talk about Austen without mentioning Pride and Prejudice. This story is about when two young men of large fortune move into town. Mrs. Bennet is determined to have one of her daughters married off to one of them. However, love, as Jane and Elizabeth soon learn, is rarely simple and can be found in the most unexpected places. Their worlds are quickly turned upside down, and Elizabeth discovers that first impressions can often be misleading, particularly when Mr. Darcy is concerned. This is my favourite book of all time. I absolutely adore this story. Lizzie Bennet is a wonderful heroine and Darcy is just a socially awkward weirdo. I love the 1995 Colin Firth TV show version of this book adaptation, but the movie is also good too, and I highly recommend rereading and rewatching the story this spring season, as it's just the perfect way to spend an afternoon. Another classic is The Enchanted April. This follows a group of women who are all living kind of dual lives who come together to rent a castle in Italy for a month. I recently finished this one and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Some parts are a little slow, but the nature imagery is beautiful in this book and it truly makes you feel like you're with these women enjoying a holiday in Italy during the spring. Next we have The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady, which is exactly what it says on the tin. This is Edith Holden's original diary and it's filled with naturalist paintings and delightful observations chronicling the English countryside throughout 1906. This covers a whole year, not just spring. However, the paintings and drawings that she has for the spring months are so lovely that I had to include it on the list. This book is visually stunning and it includes Holden's nature findings over the course of the year. It's just a really lovely and very easy read. Moving on to graphic novels, we have The Tea Dragon Society. It follows the story of a girl named Greta who, after discovering a lost dragon at the market, gets wrapped up in a society of tea dragons. I have talked about this graphic novel series a lot on this channel, so I shall try and keep this brief. This story again follows the whole year, but it starts and ends in the spring, and the images are so pretty that it needed to be on the list. I love this series, it's so cute and wholesome, and I just want a tea dragon. I mean, teas and dragon, what can be better? On to manga, and we have A Silent Voice. This follows our main guy who, when he was in middle schools, he led his peers into bullying a deaf classmate. She transfers schools and things go on for our main guy, but he goes from being the bully to the bullied and is left completely alone. Years later, the pair meet and our guy sets off to redeem himself. He learns sign language to apologise for his behaviour and so begins a relationship that will change both their lives forever. I believe this story goes out throughout the year again. However, I remember the cherry blossoms in this story and in the movie, so I'm including it on this list. This story is beautifully written, and as a disabled woman myself, I am extra critical and cautious when it comes to disabled characters and stories, but this one is actually very well done, and there's only one part which I kind of wish could have been done differently. And our main guy is such a great character. This is like my second favourite redemption arc storyline, beaten only by Zuko in Avatar. It is a really good one. I highly recommend giving this a go. Jumping from one favourite to another, we have The Lonely Castle in the Mirror. I'm just going to read you the blurb for this one. In a tranquil neighbourhood in Tokyo, 7 teenagers wait to find their bedroom mirrors are shining. At their single touch, they are pulled from their lonely lives into a wondrous castle filled with winding stairways, watchful portraits and twinkling chandeliers. In this new sanctuary, they are confronted with a set of clues leading to a hidden room where one of them will get granted a wish. But there's a catch. If they don't leave the castle by 5 o'clock, they will be punished. As time passes, a devastating truth emerges. Only those brave enough to share their stories will be saved. This book begins in May and then again it continues throughout the year. And honestly, I just think this novel is a masterpiece. It is beautifully written and very tender. It touches on bullying and friendship, and honestly, the ending is just so well done. It blew me away. It wrapped up the plot in a way that I didn't see coming, and yet it made perfect sense. I'm not going to say much more, otherwise I will spoil it. So I will leave you with that. Go check it out. I highly recommend. Moving on, we have Half a Soul. This follows Dora, who, after a run-in with a fae when she was a child, ends up with only half a soul. This means that she doesn't really feel emotions properly, and she's a bit of an oddball. She goes to London with her cousin and ends up getting mixed up with the Lord Sorcerer, and together they try and deal with a magical plague of sorts. This book is just good fun. It's like a Jane Austen romance with magic. Dora is a wonderful little weirdo who I really warm to, and it gives me kind of the similar vibes that Howl's Moving Castle does. Whenever I read that, it's just pure magical enjoyment and it just makes me feel good, and sometimes that's all you need in a good book. Finally, we have non-fiction, and it is Fluorography. I hope I've said that right. This is a beautifully illustrated guide to the Victorian language of flowers. I always think of flowers when it comes to springtime, so I thought this would be a great book to add to the list. And it's also just really fascinating to learn the meanings behind flowers, and the illustrations are just gorgeous throughout. And that was it for my spring book recommendations. I hope that you find a book on there to add to your TBR or a new spring favourite. I honestly love reading books to match the season, and listening to The Enchanted April as an audiobook currently when spring is just coming to proper bloom here has been honestly wonderful. But do let me know what spring books you would recommend. Do you have any spring favourites that weren't on the list? Do you have a book that you read every year to get you into the spring spirit? Please let me know in the comments below, because I'm always looking for seasonal books. So That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing, as I have a lot more bookish content to come. Well, until next time, my lovely bookish friends.